Arnold Schwarzenegger's black leather jacket and wraparound Gargoyle sunglasses from the Terminator became instant icons of 1980s cinema. But the stories behind these legendary costume pieces are stranger than science fiction. From gold zippers painted over at the last minute to sunglasses designed for military ballistic protection, and a punk's oversized clothes that somehow fit perfectly on a bodybuilder, the path to pop culture immortality was paved with bizarre production decisions and happy accidents. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about. The Terminator's leather jacket and sunglasses. Fact 1. Lance Henriksen wore the look first. Before Arnold Schwarzenegger ever donned the iconic leather jacket and shades, another actor was actually James Cameron's first choice to play the killer cyborg from the future. That actor was Lance Henriksen, a character actor who had worked with Cameron on the director's first film, Piranha 2. Cameron was so convinced that Henriksen was perfect for the role that he even created concept art sketches showing what Henriksen would look like as the Terminator, complete with the leather jacket and menacing appearance that would later become synonymous with the franchise. But Henriksen didn't just audition in the traditional way. When Cameron needed to pitch the Terminator to John Daly, the chairman of Hemdale Film Corporation, he came up with an unconventional strategy to sell the vision. Cameron asked Henriksen to arrive at the meeting early and essentially terrorize the office staff by staying in character as the Terminator. Henriksen went all in on the performance, showing up wearing a ripped shirt and a leather jacket. To make the look even more disturbing, he applied fake cuts and gashes to his face and put gold foil on his teeth to create an unsettling metallic appearance. When he arrived at the Hemdale offices, Henriksen kicked open the door to the office and sat down in a chair, remaining completely in character. The performance was so believable and intense that the secretary became genuinely frightened and accidentally dropped her typewriter onto her lap. When Cameron arrived shortly after, he had to relieve the stressed staff from Henriksen's intimidating act. Despite this memorable audition and Cameron's initial vision, the studio executives ultimately vetoed Henriksen for the lead role. However, Cameron didn't forget his friend's contribution to securing the film's financing. Henriksen was later cast as Detective Hal Vukovich in The Terminator, one of the police officers investigating the murders. Years later, Cameron would cast him again as the android Bishop in Aliens, proving that Henriksen's synthetic character work left a lasting impression on the director. Fact 2. Gold hardware painted silver last minute. The legendary black leather motorcycle jacket worn by Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Terminator went through an unexpected last-minute transformation that has become a fascinating detail for collectors and film historians. The jackets were custom-made for Schwarzenegger by Bates Leathers of California, a company known for their high-quality motorcycle gear. When Bates originally constructed these bespoke jackets, they came equipped with gold-colored hardware, including all the zippers and the belt buckle. You can actually still see this original gold hardware in some of the early publicity photographs that were taken before filming began. However, once production started, someone on the crew made the decision that the gold hardware didn't match the dark, menacing aesthetic they were going for with the Terminator character. Rather than ordering entirely new jackets or replacing all the individual metal components, which would have been expensive and time-consuming for a low-budget production, the crew took a much simpler approach. They painted over all the gold zippers and the belt buckle with silver paint to give them a chrome-like appearance that better suited the character's cold, mechanical nature. This quick fix created an unintended consequence that has proven incredibly valuable for authentication purposes decades later. Because the painting process was done hastily during production, there was overspray from the silver paint that got onto the leather surrounding the hardware. This paint overspray created unique patterns on each jacket, essentially giving every single one a distinctive fingerprint. Today, experts and collectors can use these overspray patterns to match specific jackets to particular scenes in the film. For example, one surviving jacket has been conclusively screen-matched to the iconic police station rampage scene where Schwarzenegger storms through the building searching for Sarah Connor, all because of the telltale overspray patterns that appear in close-up shots during that sequence. Fact 3. Made in very low numbers. When it comes to original screen-used pieces from The Terminator, the iconic black leather motorcycle jacket is one of the rarest and most sought-after items in movie memorabilia collecting. Bates Leathers of California custom-made these jackets specifically for Arnold Schwarzenegger in extremely limited quantities, with only a handful of them ever being produced for the entire production. The exact number has never been publicly confirmed, but sources close to the production describe the quantity as very low numbers, suggesting that perhaps only 3 to 5 jackets were made in total. What makes these jackets even more distinctive is the personalized labeling that Bates added to each one. Inside every jacket, on the interior label, someone hand-wrote the initials AS for Arnold Schwarzenegger, along with the text Property Terminator, to ensure the costumes didn't get mixed up with other wardrobe items on set. This hand-inscribed labeling wasn't just a production necessity, but has become a critical authentication mark for collectors and auction houses, trying to verify whether a jacket is genuinely screen-used or simply a replica. The scarcity of these jackets was partly due to the film's modest budget of around $6 million, which didn't allow for the kind of multiple backup costumes that bigger productions typically use. Each jacket was also distressed to varying degrees by the production team to match different points in the story, since the Terminator's appearance becomes progressively more damaged as the film progresses. Some jackets remained relatively clean for early scenes, while others were intentionally weathered, bullet-riddled, and blood-stained for the more intense action sequences later in the movie. Because so few were made, and each one features those distinctive handwritten markings inside, any jacket that surfaces at auction or in private collections undergoes intense scrutiny. The combination of the Bates label, the hand-inscribed initials and property marking, and the ability to match specific wear patterns and paint overspray to scenes in the film are all used together to authenticate these incredibly rare pieces of cinema history. Fact 4. Arnold only spoke 58 words. Arnold Schwarzenegger may have been the star and title character of the Terminator, but his dialogue throughout the entire film was shockingly minimal. In the complete 90-minute movie, Schwarzenegger delivered only 17 separate lines of dialogue. And when you count up every single word he speaks, the total comes to just 58 words. This incredibly sparse amount of dialogue was a deliberate creative choice by director James Cameron, who wanted the Terminator to feel more like an unstoppable force of nature than a chatty villain, and the limited speech perfectly reinforced the character's cold, machine-like quality. The decision to give Schwarzenegger so few lines was actually inspired by his earlier role in Conan the Barbarian, where he had only 24 lines. Cameron realized that Schwarzenegger's physical presence and intimidating demeanor could carry the character without the need for extensive dialogue. The few lines that the Terminator does speak have become some of the most iconic in cinema history, including "I'll be back," "Your clothes, give them to me now," and "Come with me if you want to live." Each line is delivered with mechanical precision and zero emotion, which made them far more memorable than lengthy monologues would have been. When you break down the economics of Schwarzenegger's performance, the numbers become even more interesting. He was reportedly paid $75,000 for his work on the film, which was a modest salary even by 1984 standards for a leading role. If you divide that $75,000 paycheck by the 58 words he spoke, it works out to approximately $1,293 per word. By comparison, when Schwarzenegger returned for Terminator 2 Judgment Day 7 years later, his dialogue increased to 700 words and his salary jumped to $15 million, which meant he was earning about $21,429 per word, showing just how much his star power and per-word value had increased. Fact 5. The sunglasses were military-grade. The iconic wraparound sunglasses that became synonymous with the Terminator weren't just chosen because they looked cool on Arnold Schwarzenegger. The Gargoyle's ANSI classic sunglasses featured some of the most advanced eyewear technology available in the early 1980s, technology that was actually so sophisticated it had been adopted by the United States Army for use in combat situations. The company Gargoyle's Performance Eyewear was founded in 1979 by Dennis Burns, who developed a revolutionary new type of lens called toric lens technology that would completely change the eyewear industry. Burns created this innovation because he observed that the curved lenses commonly used in sunglasses at the time caused significant visual distortion and eye strain for wearers, while conventional flat sunglasses left the eyes too exposed to wind, dust, and other environmental elements. His toric lens technology solved both problems by creating lenses that curved both horizontally and vertically, providing optimal coverage and protection while eliminating the visual distortion that plagued other curved designs. The breakthrough was so significant that the United States Army recognized the tactical advantages these lenses offered and officially accepted Gargoyle's eyewear for ballistic protection, making them standard issue gear for soldiers, law enforcement officers, and other military personnel. The lenses in these sunglasses met and exceeded the ANSI Z87.1 Plus impact standards, which is a rigorous certification for safety eyewear that tests resistance to high-velocity impacts. This meant the same sunglasses the Terminator wore to hide his glowing red cybernetic eye could actually withstand ballistic impacts in real-world combat situations. The glasses were built with large polycarbonate lenses designed to be shatterproof, along with rubber temple grips and nose pads for stability during intense physical activity. They also featured double-sided coatings that resisted smudging and water, making them ideal for shooting, fishing, and military operations, where clear vision could mean the difference between life and death. Fact 6. Stolen from punks who were too big. One of the most amusing continuity issues in the Terminator involves the very first outfit that the cyborg acquires after arriving naked from the future. In the opening scene, the Terminator encounters 3 punk rockers hanging out near Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, and proceeds to kill them and take one of their outfits, which includes the gray studded jacket, pants, and boots. The problem is that Arnold Schwarzenegger stood 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed around 230 pounds of solid muscle during filming, making him significantly larger than any of the punk actors who played his victims in that scene. This size discrepancy created a logical problem that even the filmmakers noticed during production. One observer on set pointed out the obvious issue, noting that the punk's clothes were way oversized for him if they fit Arnold nicely, meaning that for Schwarzenegger to wear clothes that actually fit his massive bodybuilder frame, the punk he stole them from would have needed to be equally huge. In reality, the 3 punks in the film, including one played by a young Bill Paxton in an early role, were all considerably smaller and slighter in build than Schwarzenegger. If you watch the scene closely, you can see that the punks are wearing typical early 80s punk fashion with relatively tight-fitting clothes, yet somehow these same garments fit perfectly on the much larger Terminator moments later. The production simply ignored this logical inconsistency and moved forward, banking on the assumption that audiences would be too caught up in the story to notice or care about the impossible clothing swap. The decision proved correct, as most viewers were focused on the Terminator's menacing presence and the shocking violence of the scene rather than analyzing whether the pants and jacket would realistically fit. This detail has since become a beloved piece of movie trivia among fans who enjoy pointing out the impossible physics of the costume change, though it does nothing to diminish the iconic status of that punk-inspired first outfit. Fact 7. Fire retardant material hidden inside. When you examine the original punk M65 field jacket that the Terminator steals in the opening scene, there's a hidden safety feature sewn inside that most people would never notice just from watching the film. The gray cotton jacket, which was modified by the costume department to look more punk with metal studs and chains, contains additional heavy nylon material carefully stitched into the interior of the right sleeve. This wasn't part of the original jacket design or simply added for style purposes, but rather a crucial safety modification made specifically to protect Arnold Schwarzenegger during one of the film's most dangerous stunts. The heavy nylon lining is believed to be fire-retardant material that was added to safeguard Schwarzenegger during the intense scene where the Terminator runs through a wall of flames while pursuing Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese. In that sequence, which takes place after the nightclub shootout, the cyborg chases the 2 heroes through fire without hesitation, demonstrating its inhuman determination and complete lack of self-preservation instincts. While the scene only lasts a few seconds on screen, it required careful planning and safety precautions to execute without injuring the actor wearing the costume. The placement of the fire-retardant material specifically in the right sleeve suggests that the stunt choreography had Schwarzenegger leading with or exposing his right arm as he moved through the flames, making that particular area the most vulnerable to heat and fire damage. The costume department couldn't simply use a completely fireproof jacket because it needed to maintain the authentic look and movement of the punk outfit for continuity purposes, so instead they reinforced only the areas that would be directly exposed to the fire. This kind of invisible safety modification was common in low-budget action films, where the production couldn't afford expensive special effects or elaborate stunt doubles for every dangerous scene, so they had to find creative ways to protect their lead actor while still capturing the intensity and realism that the story required. Fact 8. The jacket changed Schwarzenegger's career trajectory. Arnold Schwarzenegger's entire career path changed direction during a single lunch meeting with James Cameron. And it all happened because Schwarzenegger couldn't stop talking about how the villain should be portrayed. When Mike Medavoy, an executive at Orion Pictures, sent Schwarzenegger the script for the Terminator, the role he was being considered for was actually Kyle Reese, the human hero and protector sent back in time to save Sarah Connor. Cameron had originally envisioned Reese as the lead character and wanted someone with star appeal who could carry the film, which is why Schwarzenegger was brought in for a meeting. However, Cameron himself wasn't particularly enthusiastic about casting the muscular Austrian bodybuilder as the sensitive, scrappy resistance fighter he had written. In fact, Cameron later admitted that he had planned to pick a fight with Schwarzenegger during their lunch meeting, so he could tell the studio that the actor was impossible to work with and get out of having to cast him. But something unexpected happened during that conversation. Instead of discussing the hero role, Schwarzenegger became increasingly fascinated with the Terminator character and started offering his own ideas about how the cyborg assassin should behave, move, and think like a machine. As Schwarzenegger talked enthusiastically about the villain's mechanical nature and cold efficiency, Cameron found himself captivated by the actor's insights and began sketching Schwarzenegger's likeness on a notepad right there during the meeting. Cameron suddenly realized that this imposing physical specimen would make a far more terrifying and believable killer robot than the everyman infiltrator he had originally conceived. By the end of lunch, Cameron had completely reversed his thinking and told Schwarzenegger that he would make a hell of a Terminator, offering him the title role instead of the hero part. Schwarzenegger accepted despite his agent's advice against playing villains, and that decision transformed him from a rising action star into a global icon, forever associated with the black leather jacket and cold stare of the unstoppable cyborg. Fact 9. The sunglasses created a franchise trend. In the original 1984 Terminator film, there was actually a clear narrative reason for the cyborg to wear sunglasses. After Kyle Reese shoots the Terminator during the tech-noir nightclub scene, the bullet damages the machine's left eye and the surrounding synthetic flesh. Later, in one of the film's most memorable sequences, the Terminator goes back to his motel room and performs self-surgery, cutting away the damaged tissue and removing the entire artificial eyeball to expose the glowing red mechanical eye underneath. Since walking around with a visible robotic eye would obviously blow his cover as a human, the Terminator puts on the black Gargoyle's sunglasses to hide the damage, allowing him to continue his mission without immediately being identified as a machine. This practical plot point worked so well visually and became so iconic that the filmmakers decided to make sunglasses a permanent part of the Terminator's look in every subsequent film, even when there was absolutely no story reason for the character to be wearing them. In Terminator 2: Judgment Day, which came out in 1991, Arnold's reprogrammed good guy Terminator famously steals a pair of sunglasses from a bar patron during the opening scene and wears them throughout most of the movie, despite having two perfectly functional eyes that don't need concealing. The same pattern continued in Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, where the T-850 model played by Schwarzenegger casually grabs sunglasses from a gas station display simply because that's what Terminators do. By the time Terminator Genisys and Terminator Dark Fate were made decades later, the sunglasses had become such an essential part of the character's visual identity that the films couldn't imagine a Terminator without them. What started as a clever solution to a specific plot problem in the original film transformed into an unbreakable rule of the franchise, proving that sometimes the most iconic elements of a character's appearance come from pure accident rather than deliberate design. Fact 10. Gargoyle's brand ceased production in 2022. After more than 4 decades of producing some of the most advanced and iconic eyewear in the industry, Gargoyle's performance eyewear officially ceased all production and distribution of their branded sunglasses in December of 2022. The company had been in continuous operation since 1979, building a reputation not just among Terminator fans but also with military personnel, law enforcement officers, and outdoor enthusiasts who valued the brand's superior optical clarity and ballistic protection. No official explanation was given for the shutdown, though industry observers speculated that declining sales and increased competition from other tactical eyewear brands likely played a role in the decision. The end of Gargoyle's production created an immediate surge in demand for vintage pairs, particularly the ANSI Classic model that Arnold Schwarzenegger wore in the original Terminator film. These sunglasses, which were once readily available and reasonably priced as standard retail items, suddenly became collectible pieces of pop culture history. On secondary markets like eBay and specialty collector sites, Authentic vintage Gargoyles ANSI classics now regularly sell for anywhere between $100 and $600 depending on their condition, whether they come with original packaging, and how closely they match the specific model seen in the film. The rarest and most valuable examples are the original 1980s versions that were actually manufactured around the time the Terminator was released, especially those that come with the distinctive leather carrying case that Gargoyles used during that era. Later reissues from the 2000s and 2010s, including the 2015 classic model that came in the grenade-style zip case, tend to sell for slightly less, but are still considered valuable since no new Gargoyles products are being made. Terminator fans and collectors who want to own a piece of the film's iconic look now face the reality that every existing pair of authentic Gargoyles ANSI classics represents the finite remaining stock of a discontinued product, making them increasingly difficult to find as time goes on. Fact 11. The same glasses were in Dirty Harry. The Gargoyles ANSI classic sunglasses that became forever associated with the Terminator actually had an impressive cinematic history before Arnold Schwarzenegger ever put them on. These same sunglasses appeared in several of the Dirty Harry films starring Clint Eastwood, where they helped establish the tough, no-nonsense image of the rule-breaking San Francisco police inspector Harry Callahan. The connection between these two iconic tough guy characters wearing the exact same eyewear creates an interesting lineage in action movie history, linking the violent cop who operated outside the law with the relentless killing machine from the future. Gargoyles performance eyewear became popular with law enforcement and military personnel throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, precisely because of their practical advantages, including superior impact resistance and reduced visual distortion. This real-world reputation made them an authentic choice for costume designers working on police and action films during that era, which explains why they showed up in both the Dirty Harry franchise and the Terminator. The fact that costume designer Hilary Wright selected these particular sunglasses for Schwarzenegger's Cyborg wasn't just about finding something that looked menacing, but also about choosing eyewear that felt genuine and functional, rather than purely theatrical. The shared eyewear between Dirty Harry and the Terminator adds another dimension to what fans sometimes call the bad boy cinematic pedigree of these sunglasses. Both characters represented a certain type of 80s action archetype, the figure who gets results through violence and intimidation, rather than following conventional rules or showing emotion. When audiences saw the Terminator wearing the same style of sunglasses that Dirty Harry had worn, there was an unconscious connection being made between these two ruthless, efficient characters, even if most viewers didn't consciously recognize the specific model. This eyewear crossover demonstrates how certain props and costume pieces can develop their own mythology across multiple films, becoming shorthand for a particular type of dangerous masculinity that defined action cinema during that decade. Fact 12. Arnold wanted, "I will be back." One of the most famous lines in movie history almost didn't happen the way we know it. And the reason comes down to a disagreement between Arnold Schwarzenegger and director James Cameron over a single word. The scene takes place when the Terminator arrives at the police station looking for Sarah Connor, and the desk sergeant tells him he'll have to wait on a bench because she's busy giving a statement. In the script, Cameron had written the line as, "I'll be back," using the contraction, but Schwarzenegger had serious concerns about delivering it that way. Schwarzenegger's argument was actually based on his understanding of the character's mechanical nature. He felt strongly that a machine wouldn't use contractions in speech because they seemed too casual and human, so he kept insisting to Cameron that the line should be, "I will be back," instead. The actor believed that the more formal phrasing without the contraction would sound more robotic and menacing, which would better fit the Terminator's artificial intelligence and cold, emotionless personality. Schwarzenegger was also self-conscious about his thick Austrian accent and worried that pronouncing the contraction "I'll" might sound awkward or unclear coming from him. Cameron listened to Schwarzenegger's reasoning but completely disagreed with the suggested change. The director understood that there was something deeply unsettling about the casualness of "I'll be back," precisely because it came from a killing machine. The ordinary, almost friendly phrasing of the line created a chilling contrast with the horrific violence that follows seconds later when the Terminator drives a car straight through the police station's front entrance. Cameron refused to budge on the script, and Schwarzenegger ultimately delivered the line as written with the contraction intact. The director's instinct proved absolutely correct. "I'll be back" became one of the most quoted and parodied lines in cinema history, ranking number 37 on the American Film Institute's list of the 100 greatest movie quotes. Schwarzenegger went on to use variations of the phrase in numerous other films throughout his career, turning those three simple words into his personal catchphrase. Fact 13. Museum Replicas made a 25th anniversary jacket. To celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Terminator in 2009, the company Museum Replicas partnered with Sideshow Collectibles to create an officially licensed, meticulously accurate reproduction of the iconic black leather motorcycle jacket worn by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the film. This wasn't just another mass-produced movie merchandise item, but rather a serious collector's piece that Museum Replicas developed using all the original surviving resource materials from the 1984 production to ensure every detail matched what appeared on screen. The anniversary jacket was constructed from police-grade leather, which is significantly thicker and more durable than the leather used in typical fashion jackets, giving it the same substantial weight and feel as the original Bates jackets made for Schwarzenegger. Museum Replicas went to extraordinary lengths to recreate the jacket's distinctive features, including the classic D-pocket design with the additional coin pocket, the lace-up sides, the integral waist belt, and all the zippered cuffs and pockets that made the original so recognizable. The interior of the jacket featured custom-printed lining with special graphics and a sewn-in label specifically commemorating the 25th anniversary of the film's release. What made this reproduction particularly special for collectors was the strict limitation on its production. Museum Replicas announced that fabrication of the Terminator leather jacket would be limited exclusively to the year 2009 in honor of the anniversary, meaning that once that year ended, no more would ever be manufactured. This created a defined window of availability that turned the jacket into a time-sensitive collectible rather than an ongoing product line. The company also incorporated all the modern safety features found in contemporary motorcycle jackets, including a zip-out cold-weather lining and proper protective reinforcements, which meant the jacket wasn't just a display piece but could actually be worn for real motorcycle riding while still maintaining screen accuracy to the original 1984 costume. Fact 14. T2 photos weren't from the original. In Terminator 2 Judgment Day, there's a scene where Sarah Connor is shown security camera photographs of the original T-800 Terminator from the 1984 police station massacre, meant to be evidence from the first film's events. Most viewers naturally assume that the production simply pulled actual frames or promotional photos from the original Terminator movie to use in this sequence, but that's not what happened at all. These security camera images were actually brand new photographs taken specifically for the 1991 sequel, featuring Arnold Schwarzenegger posing in the same costume and Gargoyle sunglasses from the first film. The decision to shoot new photos rather than reuse original footage or stills from the first movie might seem unnecessarily complicated, but there were practical reasons for this choice. By 1991, Schwarzenegger's appearance had changed somewhat from how he looked 7 years earlier, and the production team wanted the images to match the continuity of how he appeared in the rest of Terminator 2. Additionally, the specific angles and framing needed for the security camera photo sequence may not have existed in the original film's footage or publicity materials, so staging new photographs gave the filmmakers complete control over exactly what appeared on screen. The photographs were carefully designed to look like grainy, low-quality security camera captures from 1984, complete with the black and white aesthetic and slightly degraded image quality you would expect from surveillance equipment of that era. Schwarzenegger was dressed in the identical black leather jacket and wore the same model Gargoyle's ANSI classic sunglasses to maintain visual consistency with the first film, even though these were technically different physical items from the ones used during the original production. The attention to detail in recreating these supposed archival images demonstrates how seriously James Cameron and his team took continuity between the films, going so far as to restage and photograph scenes that theoretically already existed, rather than simply repurposing old material. Fact 15. Auction prices reach 5 figures. Original screen-used leather jackets from the Terminator have become some of the most valuable pieces of movie memorabilia in the collector's market, regularly commanding prices that reach well into 5 figures at major auctions. The iconic black Bates leather motorcycle jacket worn by Arnold Schwarzenegger has sold at prestigious auction houses like Prop Store and Profiles in History for anywhere between $20,000 and $40,000, depending on the jacket's condition, provenance, and how well it can be screen-matched to specific scenes in the film. The value of these jackets has remained consistently strong over the decades, with a jacket-only piece selling for $40,000 back in 2007, then $20,000 in 2008, and $40,000 again in 2009, when it was built onto a display. More recently, individual jackets continue to sell in the $18,000 to $28,000 range, demonstrating that demand from collectors hasn't diminished even as time has passed. Complete Terminator costumes that include not just the jacket but also the pants, boots, and other wardrobe elements can command even higher prices, sometimes reaching or exceeding these estimates when multiple collectors compete for particularly well-documented pieces. Interestingly, it's not just the famous black leather motorcycle jacket that brings premium prices at auction. The gray M65 punk-field jacket that the Terminator steals in the opening scene has also become highly collectible, especially examples that show the production distressing with bullet holes and stage blood applied by the special effects team. These punk jackets, which were commercially produced and then modified by the costume department with metal studs, chains, and faux leather patches, can sell for thousands of dollars even though they weren't custom-made like the Bates jackets. The appeal lies in their direct connection to one of cinema's most iconic characters and the visible evidence of their use in violent action scenes, with each bullet hole and blood stain serving as a tangible reminder of the film's intense practical effects work.